Oh my gosh, I should have put that cable cutter on the Jeep. Well, hello, Blue Troopers. Max of Max's Models here. Got a lot done today. Pretty active, so let's get into it. First thing, I got an early start on the Hellcat, and I tried and in getting ready to test some decals, I tried two different kinds of clear lacquer. One was the Testers, the other was the Tamiya, and they both seemed to work okay. The Testers went on, I guess you would say, a little heavier, but they both worked out just fine. And to keep the markings correct, I cut out one of the decals for the Hellcat, and while I was prepping the wings, I realized I'd gotten some pictures from Eric over at Celebrating Vintage Model Kits, and he had pictures of McCampbell's plane, the one I'm making. Turns out all the famous glamour shots were in a different airplane, but the one he actually flew in combat, which was the Dash 5 model that this kit is of, was all navy blue. And he told me that Grumman actually by this point was making the Hellcats completely blue, including the landing gear, the tail wheel, everything, even the prop hub. And he had receipts. He sent me pictures. So I was like, well, okay, well, let's do it right. So went ahead and shot everything in blue. Then I went ahead and tested that decal. It immediately exploded on me. So I started putting extra coats of the Restorer film to see if that could salvage the remaining ones. I also got the last of the exhaust pipes on the engine and got a quick test fit in on that. Got the canopy tape removed. There were some blemishes. A little of that Novus polish helped out with that. Still not perfect. I'm not bothered by the demarcation lines. It's just more the a little bit of glue gassing that frosted a little bit of it. I thought by leaving the canopy off it'd be okay, but nope. Also, the gun sight had been knocked sideways, and then I found my white glue that is made for a clear canopy part. So I was like, hooray. So I used that on the gun sight. Too bad I didn't use it on the rest of the canopy, but I couldn't find it. And this windshield doesn't fit very well. I'm going to tell you that right now. I played with it. That's how I got that nasty glue smear on it. And I was able to clean that up, but it's not a great canopy. But fortunately, having found my canopy glue, at least the gun sight didn't make matters worse. I was hoping gassing it out with the canopy off would be enough, but apparently it wasn't. And the Novus fine scratch remover, it did help, so looking pretty good. Got to work on the propeller. The blades are black. The hub is blue. The old decals with the Restorer fluid did work okay on the little propeller decals, but the big ones are the ones that were coming apart until I got about 3 coats on them. So it's time to take a break. The wife and I wound up at Hobby Lobby, and I found one of these old Testers paint model sets for beginners. I always thought those are kind of cool. I think I actually had one when I was like a teenager. I didn't get it. It's $40, plus I've got plenty of paints. I did want to get some Testers red tube because that stuff, I don't think there's a glue out there that bonds better. And I saw they have these big long tubes now and these little mini tubes. So I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. Also saw this thing called a marker airbrush kit. I almost got it on an impulse buy. I went online and saw how it worked, and you put a paint marker in there and it just basically blows the paint off of it on the paper, sort of like a little El Cheapo airbrush. Might have been cool to play with, but got other things to do. So got back and realizing that my decals were in pretty bad shape with the original ones to the kit, that is. And I started going through the stash to see what I could find. Also, I have had this Tamiya glue dispenser for a while. I believe Garfield sent it to me a couple of years ago, and I just never got around to using it. So today I decided to use it. It comes with several parts. You got the rectangular case. You've got the tube of glue that comes in a foil pack. You take the tube out of the foil pack, put it in the rectangular case, clip the end on the back. Then it has this little cap that also pierces it, although I had to run another needle in there to get it to make the hole all the way through so it would work. But then you can turn the thing over and the glue comes out when you push the 2 little yellow buttons, and it worked really, really well. And unfortunately, I had a little boo-boo. I was turning the Hellcat over, and dadgummit, I hit the tail and it snapped off that antenna, which, by the way, I can't find. It shot across the room somewhere. The kit comes with 2 antennas. for the front, so I can probably take the unused one and fix the tail or graft it on or put a new one on. I'm not sure why they molded that in place, but not the one that goes behind the cockpit. But anyway, so I did some test applications of the decals. I had a couple of them disintegrate, but with enough of the restore fluid, I was able to get the big one on the side. I had to trim it out of the blue because otherwise the blue didn't match the blue on the airplane. It would have looked wrong. So I trimmed out the star and the bar and put it on and got it to work. I did find some star and bar decals for another airplane. Actually, it was for the 148 scale Hellcat. It's actually for McCampbell's airplane, the same one I'm building. But although they were off scale, the large fuselage decal was almost exactly the right side to make the smaller wing decal on the 132nd scale kit. Close enough, you can't tell the difference. So I went ahead and did that, and that looked real good. So it's only the one on the side that I have to be really careful with, and of course his markings on the airplane. But these test fits went okay. I think we're probably in pretty good shape. In other news, I found the missing railing for the Araby High missile that I'd lost. It had gotten into the shot over here, into the little storage rack I have. It was hidden behind something. What do you know? So got that hardening in place. Then I'll brush paint it later. Now, the big problem today was the Jeep driver. I put him together and he didn't fit. Now, having owned a Jeep, I can tell you exactly how snug those things are. And there's just no room for error with this thing. And what happened was, I think the steering column had popped loose from the bottom of the dash. So it was just a tiny little bit low. And I probably had his right arm just a skosh out of place. And we're talking tiny little bits, but there's no room for error on this. And I wound up having to break the arms off and getting everything redone. And not to mention, I had a real difficult time painting him because I was using the Humbrol flesh tone. And if I put it on thin enough that you could see his facial features, then you could see through it. And if I put it on thick enough that you couldn't see through it, it obliterated the features. I tried thinning it. I actually thinned it with the Tamiya thin glue. And it thinned out nicely, but same problem. So go figure. Eventually, I just went ahead and mixed up some acryl and painted it with acrylic. So finally get the guy more or less fitted in the Jeep. It turned out I'm going to have to, I have got to get that steering column remated to the bottom of the dash. This is an example of where a little bit of paint intrusion made the joint weak. And it's fighting against the natural flex of the styrene. So I couldn't really get in there to sand it out. I just used a generous amount of glue, and I had to hook up this sort of fishing pole looking arrangement to get enough weight to hang forward to hold the steering post into place. And I'm going to let that harden overnight. Now tomorrow I had planned to put the driver in without his hands and without one of his arms, and then get the steering, because you have to put the driver in before you put the steering wheel in. You're not getting him in afterwards. And again, having owned a Jeep, that's no exaggeration. They're that snug. But my wife said, look, that Jeep looks great. It's going to be displayed here in the house. She was very impressed with the build. She's very happy with it. But there's no way you're going to be able to get that driver's face to be as realistic looking as the Jeep. It's only going to detract. And I have to agree with her. I can't do faces, and she doesn't do them that small. So she told me, you're not putting the driver in the Jeep, so use him for something else. I'm like, okay, so the Jeep will be displayed without a driver. And that means tomorrow, once that steering post is hardened, all I have to do is put on the steering wheel and let it harden. It goes here in the house. I'll take my beauty shots for the dream car build first. There was one more little interesting foible. I got the wings on the Hellcat, and there were some pretty substantial gaps. The wings are basically bowed down just a skosh, but that's enough to create some pretty big gaps, and they don't actually look quite right. So the main point of contact is the side of the fuselage and the inside of the wing root, which both have styrene slabs that mate against each other. But this means I had to keep downward pressure on the fuselage and upward pressure on the wingtips to get those gaps to close long enough for the cement to harden in place. So I used a generous amount of the Tamiya thick glue and found some big old rubber bands and jury-rigged this, and that's how that's going to sit overnight. So at this point, I kind of had to stop, and I was thinking, well, maybe I'll sit and read my book. But then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I brought a bunch of stuff in for my office to clean out the office a little that might be useful in the TARDIS. And one of them was this old aquarium that here in the room, you flip an aquarium upside down, it becomes a very inexpensive display case. And I figured this might give me a little extra room if I put this over some models, and I could put some models on top. Unfortunately, it's so big that a little Avro Aero car and one tank were about all I could fit up there, and you could hardly see them. So, keep the dust off a few things. I'll figure out what to do with it. Maybe I'll put it someplace else. But my wife had an old doll case she wasn't using, so I thought there was an opportunity there to play with this, use that as a possible case for a rocket or something. So those kind of worked. I'll have to figure things out. And that brings us to one more interesting little situation. One of the things I brought was this old box for the Villele space taxi, and I heard what sounded like a model kit styrene rattling around inside. And I was like, wait a minute, I know I built this kit, it's up on the shelf. So I opened it up and there was some stuff in there, and lo and behold, there's this little Lindbergh Caravelle. And I was like, I must have put that in there without thinking about it. And sure enough, it's the full kit. I'm like, well, what do you know? Happy joy. I found a model I didn't even know I had. Which brings up an interesting point that I'm not sure if I should build this or not. That might actually be a fairly rare kit. That's an old original Lindbergh, I think. I'll have to do a little research. But anyway, it's been a fun day. I got a lot done. Overall, things went pretty well. I'm chasing stuff around the floor as usual. I was talking with Steve of Steve's Model Mania while I was working, and he was listening while I dropped a couple of things, and let's just say there's still a dark cloud of blue language hovering over the TARDIS somewhere. And that's what we got done today, though. But hey, a rough day of model building beats a good day of work. And actually, it was a pretty good day of model building. So that's where we're at with all of that. I hope you guys' builds are going well. Remember that the Dream Car group build photos are due by the end of July. Guys, you take care of yourselves. We'll talk at you later. And as always, model on. I found the missing guardrail to my Araby High. It had gone into my little organizer here. It was hiding behind some stuff. Well, paint that and stick it on. Of course, one minor slip and you break off the antenna and the tail. I don't even know why that's molded in place. Wonderful.